God was all she had, and it was enough. She never imagined this life. When she was younger, she dreamed like everyone else. A family that stayed, a love that lasted, a future that felt safe. She believed that if she loved deeply, gave generously, and stayed faithful, life would return the same kindness. But life did not follow her plans. The unraveling did not happen all at once. It was slow, quiet, almost polite at first. Promises softened into excuses. Affection turned into distance. Conversations ended sooner than they should have. And then one day, the absence was no longer emotional. It was physical. He was gone, not just from the home, but from responsibility, from commitment, from the life they had built together. She stood in the doorway that night, long after the door had closed, holding the weight of a future she never agreed to carry alone. Becoming a single mother changed everything. It rewrote her identity. She became everything at once: provider, protector, comforter, disciplinarian, nurturer. There was no off switch, no break, no one to lean on when the day was too heavy. She learned how to function on very little sleep. She learned how to stretch meals. She learned how to silence her own needs so her children's needs could come first. She learned how to smile in public and break in private. Strength when forced is exhausting. There were nights she sat on the edge of her bed after the children fell asleep, staring at the wall, wondering how she got here, wondering why love abandoned her, wondering why loyalty seemed to cost her everything, wondering if she had failed. The loneliness was not always loud. Sometimes it came quietly, disguised as routine. Sometimes it came in the grocery store, watching families shop together. Sometimes it came at night, when the house was silent, and the questions were loud. And sometimes it came when fear whispered, "What if you can't do this? What if you break?" That was when God met her, not with thunder, not with spectacle, but in the stillness, when she had nothing left to say, and no one left to call. In that quiet place, God spoke.
I see you.
Not the strong version she showed the world, but the tired woman holding herself together with faith and tears. I have seen every sacrifice. I have seen every unseen act of love. When she felt abandoned, God said,
I will never leave you. I will never forsake you.
When she felt forgotten, God reminded her,
Can a mother forget her child? Even if she could, I will not forget you.
When shame tried to convince her she was alone because she was unworthy, God interrupted with truth.
You are chosen. You are precious. You are mine.
She asked God why it had to hurt this much. God did not explain the pain, but he stayed. She asked how she would provide. God answered,
I am your provider.
She asked how she would endure another year, another bill, another disappointment. God answered, My grace is sufficient for you. She asked who would protect her heart. God answered,
I am your shield.
There were days when faith felt thin, days when prayers were short because tears filled the space, days when she wondered if God was still listening. But God never withdrew. When she was weak, he became her strength. When she was overwhelmed, he became her peace. When fear tried to paralyze her, God said,
Do not be afraid. I go before you.
Slowly, almost without her noticing, something began to change. Her circumstances did not suddenly improve. The challenges did not disappear, but she changed. She stood differently. She prayed differently. She breathed differently. She stopped begging God to fix everything and started trusting him to walk with her through everything. She realized she was not surviving by accident. She was being sustained on purpose. God whispered courage into her spirit.
You are stronger than you know, because I am with you. I am close to the brokenhearted. I bind wounds the world does not see. I restore what was taken.
One day something sacred happened. She stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And started asking, who am I becoming through this? She saw how God had been shaping her, not into bitterness, but into wisdom, not into hardness, but into resilience, not into despair, but into quiet authority. Her children were watching her faith long before they understood it. They were learning strength, not from speeches, but from her perseverance. God spoke again.
You are not raising your children alone. I am their father too.
When exhaustion returned, God reminded her,
Those who wait on me shall renew their strength.
When regret reached for the past, God said, I make all things new. When fear reached for the future, God said, I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope. She began to understand something profound. God had not replaced what she lost. He had become everything she needed, her refuge, her provider, her counselor, her comforter, her strength. And one day, standing in her kitchen, nothing dramatic, she realized something had shifted. She was no longer afraid. Not because life was easy, but because God was faithful. She had lost many things: security, partnership, certainty. But she had not lost God. And when God is all you have, you discover a strength the world cannot give and cannot take away. God was all she had, and it was enough.